So you see, like the fear of missing out, you know, FOMO, like what we're speaking about, like when you're young, like, why do you think some of these? Because I think I've been there before. Why do you think some young women, you know, like the rush into some of these things when they're young, in terms of like, you know, like getting, you know, like boyfriends, and sometimes some of them end up having kids young and all of these things. Why do you think, yeah, the rush?
I think peer pressure is a big part of it. I know I definitely, was looked at a certain way when I was coming up and didn't have a boyfriend and didn't want one. People would always ask me, "Oh, why don't you get one? Why don't you get one?" So peer pressure is one of them.
Quick question as well. Sorry to cut you. Peer pressure from who? Like,
Friends, family. I also think that there's a lot of conditioning when it comes to young women and girls through music as well, and peers and all of these things about, how cute it is to be in a relationship.
cute.
Yeah.
Goddamn cute.
And just, we don't notice it because it's all going into your subconscious mind. But also, I'd like to say there is still an awakening going on, because a lot of young women and girls I'm seeing these days, they're not interested. They only want, either the goal is to get married, or the goal is to even be child free and single. Like, singleness is even embraced now more than it was before. But I think definitely, I don't think it's really through wanting to themselves or choice. It's just they get, what my mother would say, suckered into what's normal and what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think some of them need basically better role models around them to, like, to basically give them game? Because obviously all of us have been kids in it, and all of us know, like, you could have, like, obviously your dad, your mom, people in your family trying to tell you, like, don't do that, try to take your time, you're still young. Do you feel like some of these young women need more of these people in their lives to try to give them game?
Yes, I think there needs to be better role models, but also I think they need to embrace spending time alone, because I think solitude really lets you know who you are and what is important to you. And once you found that solitude and you found that inner peace, you won't be influenced by nothing else but yourself. So yeah, better role models do help, especially for a woman. We need someone who we can look up to see, like, to embody what a woman is and how a woman carries herself. I got that from my grandmother, and I think that's why, I don't know, I was always different. I was just different my whole life from people in my class and people in my peer group. But definitely having her there, really, she really taught me so many things about, how to carry myself. And, she taught me a lot of values that I still hold near and dear to my heart today.
When you see, like, these young girls starting early in terms of, like, you know, exposing their bodies, you know, like, sleeping with different people at a very young age, yeah, like these young girls, yeah, do you feel like these young girls are suffering from a lack of, like, you know, self-love from their parents and within themselves? Why do you think some of these young girls, they start having sex at a very young age, and some of them even have kids at a very young age?
There's a multiple different reasons why. It could be, again, it could be peer pressure, in terms of, like, getting into relationships, starting to be intimate with people. That could come from peer pressure, because I know when I was younger, it wasn't cool to be a virgin. It was looked down upon. It was like, what are you doing, sort of thing. So that was, that was just a thing back when I was younger. And in terms of having children early, I think a lot of, I don't think anybody, like any young woman, plans to get pregnant and have a kid early. Some might, but I think that's just a byproduct of, you know, just the fact that it's so hard being a young woman out here navigating relationships and men and all of these things. And it could be, you know, a lack of self-love, a lack of self-worth, which is something that normally gets taught in the home, or, you know, you teach yourself that. In terms of social media, exposing their bodies, I think sometimes that's more, some do it for financial gain as well. There's so many things, there's so many factors that come into play when it comes to these sorts of things. I think there's social factors, there's economic factors, there's political factors, you know, all of these things. But I do think people, systems, they play on these things. They exploit young women and young girls because they have the mentality that they're young, so they're easier to control
and manipulate.
And I think it really hurts my heart. It saddens me to see, like, in this society, young women and young girls are just prey. We're just prey for people to just, you know, think they can get their way with us, and it's really sad.
Have you heard of this word incel?
Yes, but remind me of the meaning, please.
So, as far as I know, this word, basically, have you seen the Netflix Adolescents, basically?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So this word, even for me, like, this word was new, incel. So I feel like, I believe, obviously, whoever's gonna watch this, if I'm wrong, correct me. So I feel like an incel is basically like just a guy who's basically, a young guy who's basically like, who doesn't get girls. A guy who, you go to say, you're volunteering, you're not volunteering, but you're celibate. Nobody wants to sleep with you and them kind of things, in terms of like, and the reason why I brought that up is like, because even for young men, it's like, that word incel doesn't make sense when you think about it, because it's like, when you're young, like, sex and some of these things shouldn't even be like part of something that you're really thinking about, you get me? Because you're young, of course, like, because I feel like the way, like you said, the way society like manipulates, like even from a guy's perspective, it's like when you're young and some of these kids, like, you know, they get teased for not being able to get a girl, or to be a virgin, like you said, and all of these things like play a part in terms of like girl and the young men to want to start getting active very early from a young age, you get me? Because I feel like when you're young, like I said, some of these things shouldn't even be anywhere near like your mind. But once again, the world that we're living in at the moment, like, we are so exposed like to so many different things every day. So it's like, it's different. And I feel like, for me, I feel like I'm gonna say this, but even me, I feel like a lot of these kids, yeah, like, just having their parents there, like, for me, I don't think it's enough, because all of us have been there where it's like, you can have some good parents, but you can go outside and still be, you know, like, influenced, right?
Yeah.
By other people. Besides these kids having their parents, like, you know, trying to guide them the right way, like, what else do you feel like some of these kids should do, or what type of help do you think some of these kids, you know, like, should get from the community, the government, in terms of like guiding them the right way?
You know what? Back home in the Caribbean, yeah, if you were caught doing something you shouldn't be doing, your neighbor can beat you.
Yeah.
And if you go and tell your parents,
They'll beat you too.
You'll beat you too. I think we need that back. We need that community back, you know. I also think that parents should try to cultivate their child's social surroundings. So as a parent, you should know who your children are friends with. You should meet your children's friends' parents. Why? Because you want to know who your child is being influenced by. When your child gets to a certain age, you're no longer the main person influencing them. It's also their friends, their peer groups, their school, the people they go to school with. All of that is going to have more of an influence than the parents. So for me, it would be about, taking your child to, like, I don't know, a Saturday school, mingling with the parents there, getting your child involved with whatever's going on, so that by the time they're reaching their teenage years now, you already know the type of people they're going to be around. Obviously, you're not going to be with them 24/7, and they might come across some characters that you would not like, but by that time you would have already instilled things in them that when they come across those characters, or when they come across people trying to steer them down the wrong road, in themselves they wouldn't like it, they wouldn't feel comfortable with it, and they'll reject it. So I definitely think this is why community events, community activities and all of those things are so important, because there's a reason why it takes a village to raise a child, not just two people, and definitely not one person, a whole village, because that village, those environments that child is going to grow up with, is building their character, is building who they are. So yeah, definitely think we need more positive role models, especially with social media. What you were saying, with us being exposed to every single thing, and that is shaping a child's mind. So yeah, I just think it's so important.
I think, you see how you said, back home in Africa, in the Caribbean, it's different, innit?
Yeah.
Like you get like the village really get involved in terms of like raising you, all of these things. Me proper listening to you, I feel like, unfortunately, I feel like the issue, even obviously once again more than ever, is the issue is these places that we're living in, man. It's just different. Like regardless of how we might want to create, like north, east, south, west, whatever, all of these black communities, regardless of how much we want to create the same kind of like village that we got from back home, the system is just different.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the system is just fucking different. Like, and all of us know, like, in these countries, like, in terms of like beating a child, doing certain things that, we might get away with back home, we can't get away with these things, unfortunately, back here. So I feel like that also like plays a major part in terms of like raising a child and disciplining a child in a certain way, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of freedom in these countries, man. Like, and sometimes people say, be careful what you wish for. Like in life, a lot of people like wish for freedom, wish for, like a lot of these things. But once you get it, sometimes you realize maybe too much freedom in a certain way might not be good for you or some of our kids. Because look, again, even talking about places like China, how, how disciplined they are, how proper strict they are with their kids and how things are structured. Look at their kids, you get me? And even, but as lot, it's like a lot of us in these countries like America, the UK, as kids from earlier, we've got so much freedom once again. And what happens is that some of us, we end up for a very long time, even speaking for myself, because I started living by myself like at a very young age, like just imagine getting your own place, getting onto 18, just before my 18th birthday. And I was like, do whatever you've got to do. Nobody, because even recently, because I'm going back to therapy, innit? I'm doing therapy at the moment again. And when literally, like, was it this week on Thursday? Because I do it every Thursday. I was saying to my therapist, I think what it is like once you get, nobody could tell me nothing basically. Imagine how dangerous it is where you're young, you've got all of this freedom, but deep down, yeah, once again, going back to how things are here, to back home, imagine knowing nobody can tell me shit, I can do what the fuck I want. You know how dangerous that is as a young child, because again, you're potentially, you know, like, you're running a risk of really, really making certain mistakes that would literally might even affect you for the rest of your life to a certain degree, you get me? And for people like me and a lot of people, unfortunately, that's what ended up happening to some of us, innit? And some of us, we still even correcting some of those mistakes, you know, addiction, starting to smoke, drink, all of these things that maybe if you had some guidance there, you wouldn't even have entertained it, you get me? So yeah, man, this conversation could go on like for years and years about talking about, you know, like our community, the people. But a wise man once said, like, you know, you must continue to, you know, to keep faith.
Yeah.
To keep faith, imagine, because it's like if you lose faith in anything, like life or whatever, it's like might as well just call it a day, innit? So before ever getting back to you, I just want to say, like, we must continue to, like, to basically like understand that not everybody's gonna turn out like you. You get me? Not everybody. Now, real talk though. Not everybody's gonna turn out like you see. Like in terms of, because you said it from early, like on here, you like from early, you was busy. You wasn't one of these kids that was distracted doing this and that. You get me? And again, not unfortunately, not every child comes out like that, because when you're young, you want to try all of these things. Like when you're a young child, you know how much it takes for you to be like, you know what? I don't want to do all of that shit. I actually want to do my thing and whatnot and just cut through. And that's what I said, man. Hopefully we can make more faiths in the future, you get me?
Yeah.
But yeah.